Hello YouTube, my name is Agent Omega, and I do things. First off, I want to apologize if my voice sounds a little bit rough. A, I'm not really sure what's up, but B, this is the third time I'm attempting to record this. The first time I didn't have my audio settings correct, so I wasn't getting multiple tracks out of this. The second time I had the audio settings correct, but it turns out that the bitrate also changed when I switched OBS modes. So, third time's the charm, hopefully. This, as you know, has been a long time in coming, is my Infinty Evolved server. And while there are a ton of builds on it, and especially right around spawn here, I'm only gonna really show off the ones that I've created, just because, I don't really have permission from folks. I'm sure a lot of them would just be chill with it or probably not even care. But, this is a server that has been around for 2 years at this point. I've had friends and family on it alike. And predominantly it's just me and my family these days. It's a real slow burn, but I've been having a lot of fun with this world. We've been playing every other week for a few hours, and I feel like I've gotten a lot done and integrating mods in an interesting way that I haven't really done before. So, with that, let me just toggle back to first person here. Ignore the niter on the ground just there, but here is the spawn. So, if you remember my Sky Factory series, up here there was a Draconic Evolution portal. Now, unfortunately, in Infinity Evolved, it's an older version of the mod, so you can only build rectangular shapes. That meant that a portal was less than feasible, so I just said this was an impact crater. Now, obviously, you can see we've got a mix of metamorphic mesa, cobblestone, and coarse loamy dirt, but between that and, the slabs, it kind of looks like an impact crater result. We've also got some fires hidden underneath here, and, that's what the smoke is, being generated from. Over here, again, like the Sky Factory server, I've got a little book with some backstory or whatever, just for the people that were newer to modded or Minecraft. And unfortunately, this is still in the spawn chunks, so while I can access this book, nobody else could. So I might need to replace this with a button that I think people could probably click and a dispenser setup type deal. But, it's pretty interesting. It's got the custom book with the text in an infinite Jabba barrel, I think, something like that. And it's just getting pumped up. So every time somebody takes one, it immediately gets refilled. Just a little bit of admin hacks for the server that nobody can really access or benefit from besides, just having that little backstory. Now, over here, I created a little starter area. Some of these used to be apple trees, but I guess stuff happened to them over time, and I haven't really been back here to maintain it because, obviously people don't really need this so much. Bunch of starting berry farms that I used for food initially. You can see we've got some other crops over here. And last, but certainly not least, in the starter area, we have this starter cave. Now, I'm always in the habit of making a starter base, and especially on modded servers, I usually like to make the starter base accessible to just about anyone that could possibly want to play. So we've got a bed, regular old furnace, crafting station, and initial Tinker's Construct smelter. Now, this is huge. I want people to be able to get into Tinker's Construct right off the bat, and I know that's kind of difficult to do sometimes. Yep. So we also have Tinker's Construct drying rack. We've got, all of the tables that you'd theoretically require for this. The drying rack was a good source for monster jerky back when I was still eating that. Now, early on in the game, I found a portal gun. It was specifically the potato portal gun. I found it in a desert temple, and that's what I used to get up to my next base really easily without having a lot of materials to pillar up. Later, I made my dad a portal gun. It was also the potato gun. I thought that portals corresponded to each player. However, they correspond specifically to the type of portal gun. So, when he placed his portals, he accidentally overwrote mine. What I ended up doing was I created my own portal gun of a different type, and so we're going to go on through the green portal. Now we are here in the village of Valois. Before we continue over much, basically the story is that, these villagers came from afar, and they were accompanied by who would be later referred to as Saint Adelaide, and when they saw this place, they said that it overlooked, valleys, and, it basically ruled over the valley as if it was king. Valois, the king of the valley, basically. And so over here we have the Founder's Manor. Allegedly this is where Saint Adelaide originally lived, but obviously over time it has become more of a mayoral residence. So we'll just go in real quick. Over to the right is where the kitchen was planned on being. You can see I've got a whole bunch of birthday stuff from last year when we were all quarantined and we couldn't really do anything terribly special. Actually, was that last year or was that a year before? I don't even remember at this point. But basically, they made me a whole bunch of birthday stuff and foodstuffs that I still haven't eaten, really. It's a good thing nothing expires in Minecraft. Down below is going to be the basement. Probably just storage and the like, I think. Up top, on the left, we have the study/library here. Enchanting table, obviously. Disenchanting table. That's how I got the soul binding for my golden wings. I actually got really lucky. That was on a bit of chainmail that a skeleton was wearing, and it dropped, and I was like, that's fantastic. Over here, we have the Mistcraft setup. There's already a book in the lectern, probably for crystal gathering for more portal setups. But we also have more Mistcraft books in these bookshelves, and mod book tutorials up in here as well. We've clearly got the Draconic Evolution book in here, but because this wall doesn't have a back, it just looks like we're looking straight on through to the next room, but that's going to be rectified eventually. In the next room, this is supposed to be the servants' quarters, at least I think that was originally the plan. There would be a ladder up into the attic too, where there would be more storage, I think. Not really sure about that, haven't really decided. This may potentially be like a laundry room and the servants' quarters will be up top. I haven't really figured that out just yet. Over here, we have the mayor. Theoretically, it's a benevolent mayor that, treats the servants well, pays them an appropriate wage and, never raises a hand against them type deal. At least, that's my headcanon, and you can't tell me otherwise because it's my world building. In here, we have child's bedroom numero uno. We have child's bedroom number 2. And we have the master bedroom for the mayor and their spouse. Of course, master bedroom of a mayoral residence wouldn't be anything without, having a balcony to overlook the thing. And as you can see, I've kind of gone for a Tudor-style house, even though this definitely isn't Tudor in nature. Clearly missing a roof. It's going to just be thatch or something like that. You can see I've used woolen clay, but in real life, this material, if memory serves, was a combination of hay, clay, or, some kind of mud, and also poo. And that, that sort of slurry solidified into, Tudor wall houses. And, it was really gross sounding, so I'm glad I could use woolen clay, which is just wool plus clay in crafting bench makes woolen clay. Actually, I think it was hardened clay, so I actually had to smelt that stuff up first and dye it all the appropriate colors. Over here, we have the gardener's hut/shack thing. The whole joke is that the gardener is so good at their job, they have a magic thumb. And this is my starting Botania setup, which, as you may be aware, is the flower magic mod in the pack. We have our petal apothecary. It's the only one I have so far, but I'm going to have another one later. The lore here is, the water sort of flows out of it and, trickles down, and it's supposed to run through some, like field-like stuff or, gardens and trickle on off the edge. I'm probably going to change this design up when I have more resources and I know what I really want to do with it. There's definitely going to be a lot of quartz involved, I think, because I want it to look a lot more elegant than just hardened dirt. So you get the idea. We're going to have to sleep soon, so we're going to take care of that. But for now, let's move on over to the Tinker's Construct furnace, the smelter. This is going to be like sort of the blacksmith area. We're going to have like sort of a thatch overhang in an L shape like this, and then it'll attach up to the house. I'll probably have like some fireproof layers in between here and the actual smelter so that the house doesn't burn down. I like incorporating some level of realism in my builds, even if it's a fantasy kind of inspired thing. And I don't think I've mentioned it in this recording just yet, but the 3 inspirations, while I'm headed for a bed, the 3 inspirations for this series were Fire Emblem 3 Houses, Tales of Vesperia, and, of course, Final Fantasy XIV. So, very fantastic, in the sense that it is fantasy-related, etc. So yeah, blacksmith house is going to be in here. Need more anvils and, smeltery stuff. And it's thatch roof. It's going to look really cool, I hope. Back here, we have my initial ore storage. Still going to keep some of this stocked up. I'm going to have like a villager back here, like being a salesperson, manning, the ore sales. Over here, we have the Stonecutter Society and the mine. The Stonecutter Society is a reference to a fanfic, which in and of itself, I suppose, might be a reference to some other stuff. But this Stonecutter Society sells stone, spirits, and salves. So we have our stone, cobblestone, smooth stone, obsidian, and of course a number of precious gems and stones. Of course, also some chisel work that can be done in here, and the like. The spirits portion is, mostly just aesthetics. This was supposed to be sort of like a swank bar that, miners, merchants, whoever could come into and, just have a drink after a long, hard day. And, unfortunately, while there are, like different alcohol things that you can make in this version of the game, with various mods, it doesn't actually do anything except give you the sick effect. So there's not much point to it. If they gave you buffs in addition to the sick effect, that'd be interesting. So yeah. Eventually I'd have, like 2 villagers or something back here just working the counter. And then back here is going to be the apothecary, which, obviously is unfinished, but the whole idea is you have a bunch of mineral water. That's got to be good for alchemy, right? You can either distill it or use the minerals as they are, various natural properties. We're not going down to the mine because, we're at y equals 157, and that mine goes all the way down to y equals 20 or lower. I'll show you a bit later. So, back here we have my initial Railcraft coke oven setup for immersive engineering and creosote oil. I've got a lot of the stuff. This also was how I got my charcoal, but I've largely not needed it thanks to redstone flux. Oh yeah, right. Over here, if you're familiar with Kiki's delivery service, I'm planning on putting a combination restaurant and granary and bakery. So I'm planning on having, like sort of a couple of buildings connected by a bridge, and, there are going to be a bunch of restaurant tables, and, potentially some of the tables will get into the bridge area like that. There will be a path coming sort of along this way that'll, sort of meander its way over that way, and of course we'll have paths, going over to the mayor's house and along this way, etc., etc. So it'll be a fairly interconnected village once I'm done and, have the resources to build out all that stuff. But the granary, of course, because it's a mill, will also have a couple more windmills to power that action, much like that mill over there. Working our way on over this way, this is going to be something like a vineyard. It's going to have a bunch of berries and stuff, crops potentially. Also bees. I plan on having some of the forestry bees up in here. And I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with those, but I'm also going to have like a very swank house. You can see that I've worked on sort of a shrubbery as like the dividing area for the vineyard so that like the bees don't get everywhere in the village. Working our way down this way. There are going to be a few things over here. Like over here I think is going to be the entrance to the inn. I forget what I called it, but I did mark it on the Dine map so I can reference it later. So there will be like the Cliffside Inn. I think that's what it's called, the Cliffside Inn. And the neat thing about it is you'll enter on this topmost level, but you'll basically go down into the depths, and each room will basically have a view overlooking, this part of the map. Over here, those astute and familiar with Minecraft, or modded Minecraft, probably understands that this used to be a pool of oil that I then pumped out, and I think I've got all the oil in here. Yes. So, that is why this place is going to be called Derek's General Store, and the gimmick, well, I mean, obviously the pun is that oil derricks are what you use to pump oil out of wells, but then the gimmick is you're going to enter from like over here, you're going to come down into this area, and all of the shops are going to be like recessed into the stone, kind of thing. So it'll be like a below ground market. A lot of that going on in this village. Now, on this end, and of course also on the other end, we've got two things called ladders. They're not actually going to be ladders. This is a reference to Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. The Calusia region has a powered elevator that people call the ladder, because it looks like a ladder. Like, it has different rungs. They say the bottom rung is, the bottom, and the top rung is the top. Well, clearly. So, I'm going to make funky locomotion elevators that will fulfill that same purpose. Now, Jacobs, in this case, is a reference to Borderlands Jacobs. The sort of Wild West gun, because we have, desert out that way. I might build a Wild West town kind of in this general area, maybe. And then over this area, we've got a step ladder because, well, A, it's another freaking pun, and B, because we have a geographical region that's very similar in nature to a step. Coming back over this way, the building that we've not yet gone into is the Crescent Mill. That is because this mill has a platform around the top in the shape of a crescent, and you could see that more easily from above if it weren't for the fact that I have thatched roofing now. So, popping down into the mill, it is a dual-purpose mill that both grinds down materials. I've got a pulverizer and a sag mill for different recipes. The pulverizer is not yet upgraded, so its output is kind of poop, but the sag mill is using dark steel balls and an octatic capacitor. Dark steel balls increases the output by, 300 to 400% or something like that. It's really nice. So on average, it gets me the most powders. And as you can see, I've got just tons and tons of stuff that I've been pulverizing. Like, I've got a ton of ferrous metal. I've got a ton of shiny. So that's fantastic. That's, I'm basically up to ore 3.5 or ore 4 multiplication. Like, I get significantly more ore, or significantly more ingots for my ore. That's what I was going for. Around the corner, we have a sawmill and a carpenter. I haven't actually been using the carpenter because the recipes are very different from that of the sawmill, which I've been using to turn logs into 6 planks instead of the default 4 in crafting. Of course, we've got some decorative stuff, framing table for storage drawers, deco bench, and painting machine for Ender IO. We've got some storage, and this goes off to the village power grid that you may have noticed. Up top, we of course have a windmill that you've seen from above, but I'm more interested in what... Let's go on back up first for a second there. Close that jaded ladder. And this is like the thing that really inspired me to even start the server. I had this idea before I started the server. So basically we've got 4 immersive engineering water wheels. This is technically suboptimal because A, not all the areas are surrounded by flowing water like they could be, and B, they're not 3 deep. So we're not getting the maximum 88 RF per tick on these things, but I don't care because it looks cool. And because of course they are spinning in opposite directions and they have the same amount of water contact on all 4 of them, they of course look like they are interlocking gears. And I plan on doing the same exact thing on the 2 ladder contraptions that I mentioned. Now the next obvious thing, and this is all roughly in chronological order of me having built it, so the next big thing is clearly this bridge. Now, some of you keen eyes out there might realize that this top part is inspired by the London Tower Bridge. The rough shape, at least. I'm not that great a builder, and there's something a little bit wonky about the way I've done this up here, but I don't care, because in general, the overall shape looks pretty dang good, in my opinion. Down below, this part of the bridge was inspired by, and I don't remember the name of the bridge, so if I remember, I'll link the Wikipedia article down in the description or the comments. But this was inspired by a rail bridge in Italy, I believe. Either that or it was a bridge in Britain that was built by the Romans or something like that. I don't remember. But the point is, it was built, and then it was destroyed in World War I or II. And then it was rebuilt. And the interesting thing is, when it was originally built, I think it had like 4 of these arches on a side, but then when it was rebuilt, it had 5. So there was just a subtle difference in bridge construction there. Now, you may have noticed that these also have doors. So let's take a look down here real quick. First, the purpose of the bridge. The village is over here, and we have our academy on the other side. So, the bridge is 5 wide. This is ostensibly so that carriages can come up in here, if they've taken the ladder and, managed to bring their supplies up and, they're in their carriage, they can then drive across the bridge, and if this gate is open, they can deliver supplies directly to the monastery. If There are also going to be a whole bunch of merchant stalls just along the edges because there's going to be plenty of space. Foot traffic can pass through here or up there. All 4 of these towers, and I'm actually going to go ahead and sleep real quick, but all 4 of these towers have spiral staircases that take you up to those other bridges. So pedestrians can, go up there if they want to sightsee or if they just feel safer up there. You'll also notice, again, down below the bridge had doors, and we've got these stairs here in the middle. So if we pop on down here, another inspired by Fire Emblem Three Houses thing is we're going to have 4 merchants down here. So we'll have the weaponsmith. Actually, I think this is the weaponsmith. We'll have the armorer or something like that. We'll have an apothecary, and then just miscellaneous goods. And that's kind of based on the merchants in Garreg-Mach Monastery. Down on either end, we have, I think it's 3 doors a side, times 2 sides, times, north and south, or east and west, I should say. We have 12 individual rooms that should be occupied by guards. Now, this is 1.17, or 1.7.10 mechanics, so that means that in order to have a place that a villager can occupy, you need a door and sky access. And this is conveniently a full block with a door and sky access. So, that means we theoretically have 12 spots for guard villagers that we can get by raising a villager's disposition and subjecting them to witchery by giving them an armor, I think, or something like that. Maybe a sword. I don't know. So, next, you'll notice we've got this gate here. It is currently shut, and it doesn't really look like we have any way of raising that gate. Except you'd be wrong, because we are using Tinker's Construct drawbridges, which can be disguised as other blocks. Now, the interesting thing about this bridge is, gate, is that you'll notice these are of different lengths. So it's not just the lever turns on and they all descend and the lever turns off and they all retract. No, when they descend, these 2 side ones are on a delay, so that it looks like the gate is properly descending. Now, when it retracts, there is 0 delay. So the way I accomplished this was using an AND gate and just repeaters, so that when, it descends, the delay is applied accordingly, and when it retracts, it immediately turns off. So very interesting redstone. Now, over here, this area I have laid out is entirely going to be inspired by Garreg-Mach Monastery. Down underneath where the floor level is going to be is my area full of storage drawers, and it's going to be the main storage for the entire base, really. Well, I say that, but it's only going to have stuff that makes sense for the academy. So it's going to have, weapons, crops, foods, various supplies for magic, etc., etc. All stuff that you would basically find in a Fire Emblem game, sort of thing. Up top, well, actually, before I continue, down below, there's also going to be another gate that'll connect it over to the guards area. So the guards can get into the storage and, passersby that, are for whatever reason frequenting the barracks can't. So, over here, in this general corner, we're going to have the barracks or the students, accommodations, the dormitories, that's the word I'm looking for. It's going to be designed very similarly to Garreg-Mach's dormitories, in that it's going to have a lower level, which will have the entrances sort of overhung by, the upper level dorms, and everybody's going to have a view out into this side. Actually, I might reverse that. I've just realized I might have to reverse that, because then the top dormitories are, not going to have a view to the outside, but rather the rest of the monastery, and that doesn't seem quite fair. I might just put, the walkway on the inner side, and that might make more sense. But either way, student dorms, overlooking, this lovely view. Moving further in, I haven't quite decided if this right here is going to be the greenhouse, or if I'm going to lower this a little bit and just have it be a scenic overlook, with some trees and some nice greenery, some real aesthetic stuff, in which case I'd put the greenhouse somewhere else. And the greenhouse will grow, that's where I'm going to put my agricraft stuff, I think. And that's going to be like crops, also magical materials, maybe some botania stuff. I think you can make botania flowers with agricraft too. Could be wrong. Over here, we have one of the teachers, or one of the professors' houses. And in this case, they are the professor of, Thaumcraft. So it's our initial research area. But this telescope, and later the observatory, larger telescope that I'm going to put in here, sort of alludes to, in later versions of Minecraft Modded, there's astral sorcery. So in those versions, this professor would be both Thaumcraft and astral sorcery. And I haven't really figured out their backstory beyond that, but this is sort of, their accommodations. Down one level is their storage, like a kind of mid-tower, and down beneath that is their actual sleeping quarters so that students, don't bother them in the middle of the night kind of dealio. Moving right along, there are going to be some more houses, probably like some archery targets and like a place for the students to spar and the like. But then here, much like Garreg Mach, we're going to have a large cathedral and sort of either an inner sanctum or like just a gazebo area. So the cathedral is going to be rather tall. It might have the quarters for whatever holy person is supposed to be there, much like Garreg Mach and Lady Rhea. And then up at the very top, there's going to be a crystal kind of thing and, like maybe some other structures. And I'm going to have a Draconic Evolution particle emitter pointed up kind of at the middle, the middle of the sky above my base. And this is where we get into a little bit of Tales of Vesperia. I'm going to put like a magic circle made out of stained glass. Not like solid stained glass, because that would ruin the village mechanics, but just like, an outline of a giant magic circle with like some symbols in the outer ring and some more geometric stuff going on the inside. And basically it'll represent, the thing that keeps the monsters out of town. And at that point in time, I'll have magnum torches, which prevent monster spawns, just dotted about underneath the area. And so at that point, I'll remove the torch spam. I'll have the lighting in very key locations just for ambiance and, where it makes sense. So like along paths, inside houses, but not really anywhere else. So, I'm going to get some good shadowing going on here. Now, the inner sanctum, I'm not going to go down that hole. It's going to be the last, the last stop on our tour, basically. But keep that in mind for later. So, the next place, and I'm doing all this roughly in chronological order that I have made things in, so you can kind of get an idea of the build process. Next is the mining portal. Now, behind me, I have my initial cobblestone generator. It is currently unfinished, but, it served its purpose until I got, like, an automatic cobblestone generator. Over here, we have my Botania setup. It is, I guess it's technically semi-automatic, but right now it is on, so it is, fully automatic. Hi there, sheep. Hello there, animals. So the way this works is you can't see it because there's like a rendering bug thanks to, so much stuff going on the server, but there are 4 repeaters in these locations. They determine the, fullness of these mana pools. And so, when it's not the maximum signal strength, because these are constantly draining out into my Alfheim portal, if, either of these goes off, then the light goes dim, of course. Like that one, right there. So what happens is there's an Ender IO redstone conduit that goes into an AND gate. The AND gate is also hooked up to this pressure plate. Actually, I think it's an OR gate. So it's hooked up to the OR gate. So, if this is on, or this light is on, it won't dispense any more stuff. It's just a negated OR between these two. Actually, it might just be a NOR gate. I might have just used a NOR gate. But either way, I mean to say a NOR gate, an NOR gate. It sounds like an OR gate if I say it really quickly, but it's not. So, when this is off, or there's, charcoal on the pressure plate, this stops dispensing. If the charcoal releases and this is still empty, more charcoal gets dispensed. It's semi-automatic because, technically I needed to start the system, and if I accidentally pick up a bit of coal, it is not necessarily going to continue to dispense in certain conditions. As you can see, the one behind us is now starting to go. If I pick it up, and the next one doesn't dispense, I've got buttons on top of these just so I can reinitialize the system. So you're probably wondering, where do I get the charcoal from? Ender.io tree farm feeds into these drawers, and also this acts as an overflow buffer. If this chest has any wood in it, this system turns off. But in the interim, spruce wood gets burned in this alloy smelter into charcoal. But you might be wondering, Agent, what tool are you using in that Ender.io system? Well, it turns out that Tinker's tools work, but I didn't have the adequate setup for that back in the day. So I used wooden axes. Because it's a tree farm, it's entirely renewable. So the logs come in, get turned into planks, get turned into sticks, get turned into wooden axes. And it produces more axes than, I can burn through charcoal. So basically, that means this system is, perfectly balanced? Well, it's not perfectly balanced. It's actually technically in excess. If I let this thing keep going, it would produce more wood than I consume, period. So it might end up being part of the design of the final farm that I create later. Moving right along. This is what I initially used to get pink slime for a purpose that I'll disclose later. But it's also what I used to get cooked meat ingots. Basically what happens is I breed these things, the chronotyper takes the babies out, then when they grow up into adults, they get moved into this chamber and summarily slaughtered. It's a whole gruesome process. I tend not to do it all that much, and I'm probably going to move to another food type later. Back here, I used to have a process for making stained glass. I used to pulverize, cobblestone from this igneous extruder into sand, smelt it up, and I've since moved the smelter to over there. Then I had glass and pulverized coal, an autocrafter, which I've also since moved over to there. And then, the autocrafter made regular black stained glass, and I chiseled it into a form factor that I wanted, pumped it into this chest as a buffer, and into an ender chest where I used it in another place more frequently. Over here, we have my XP tank for now. Over here, it feeds into the sewer to make essence for the mob spawners that I have in here, but I can also get it out for myself if I need to. Clearly, switches for the spawner. I've got some solar panels over here that feeds into the Tesseract, but also powers these things. Right now, it's set up to be double wither, but I have several orbs, including king slime, pink slime, etc., etc. Now, when I was initially farming pink slime, I just did it this way, and it was really slow. But then, on a video by the Mindcrafters, I think, they suggested that you can use a slime and beginning syringe on the pink slime. And I took my wee tiny pink slime, turned it into a Chad huge pink slime, and captured it with, a reusable jungle thingy thing, and put it into my spawner, where I then used it to get tons and tons of pink slime for pink slime gems, and also pink slime souls, and I got lots of souls for Draconic Evolution. I see it's nighttime, but that doesn't affect our next destination, the Nether. And we're not actually going to explore the Nether in this case because there's nothing really to look at. The only thing of note, and I will show you once we get through the portal, is up in there. I have a setup for killing the Wither really easily. It's just a bunch of reinforced obsidian in a particular framework, such that the Wither cannot move and can also not destroy its surrounding environments. And then I just walk up and I wail on it with my most powerful sword, and it drops stuff and I win. I did the original Wither fights, just to get that setup started above the Nether. But anyway, we are down here in the mine because, funny enough, the end portal is under my base. That was pure, sheer dumb luck. I crafted up, my Eye of Enders, and I threw the first one. I was over by the Mayoral Manor, and it went straight down. I was really heckin' confused. Actually, if you look straight up, 114 meters above us is the village. That is the Mayoral Manor right there. So it basically went straight down, and I've gotten myself lost. Here we go. Yes. So I thought, well, maybe it's because I'm so high up that it's just going straight down, and it's actually at an angle that I can't really tell. I flew a little ways away, did the same thing, and no, it legitimately turned out that the end portal was randomly underneath my base. I was shocked and pleasantly astonished. So, the pink slime that I mentioned earlier, there is a thing called an MFR laser drill. That thing harvests ores from the bedrock, but also the void. So that means the end is really powerful, because they function better above y equals 128. In the overworld, you're not really going to do that unless you have a really big hole underneath it, and that kind of sucks. In the end, everywhere's the hole. That's fantastic. So, MFR laser drills, they take between 5 KRF and 20 KRF per tick to run. The laser drill itself does not accept the power. You have to route power in through these laser prechargers. The prechargers are what use the slime crystals, and you can have between 1 and 4 prechargers on a laser. I, as we're about to see, have a grand total of 12 lasers at the moment. So that means I needed 48 crystals, which means I needed 48 blocks of pink slime, which meant that getting them, one little slime glob at a time was going to take forever. So I'm really glad for that embiggening syringe and also the spawner. Like, those two ideas made that bearable. As you can see, 12 lasers. Each of them is dedicated to a different focus. So this one is the red one, for example. If I go this way, we're going to get to purple, because basically, I made the freaking rainbow around the edge. Now, there are 14 total foci that produce effects. 2 of them... Is it 2 of them? No, 1 of them is useless, to me, and that one is green. Green is useless because it only gives Peridot, and Peridot is only good for, decoration or Tinker's Construct stuff, and it's not that great for the Tinker's Construct stuff. So, that means there are effectively 13 good foci to use. I only have 12 lasers. What I recently found out is that lime is really good for my purposes, so I've built out these 4 offset things that are eventually all going to house lime lasers. And that means I'm going to take the lime laser in the center, and I'm going to replace it with cyan. Cyan gives only Certus quartz, but that's still really important because I'm going to get heavy into applied energistics. Now, storage system. Actually, not storage system. Ender Pearl farm. There are 160 slots, or squares, that the Ender Pearls can grow on, basically. Right now, I've got it just set on the end. I might switch this out with end cores later. I might just leave it as it is, because it turns out it works really well. Because this is all chunk loaded, and the middle chunk, specifically, houses both the current laser setup and the Ender Pearl farm. So that meant that I could just leave it loaded all day and all night. It's a persistent server, and just keep growing these things. Now, Ender Farm would get really pricey if I was using tools that could potentially break. Tinker's Construct Maddox can be made unbreakable, which is to say you use an obsidian piece and then you make the other 2 parts writable, and then you just stack on more obsidian plates until it's unbreakable, and then you use the last slot for the upgrade on your luck. So that means I get a lot of Ender Pearls, and I also get a lot of Ender Lily seeds. Or relatively a lot of Ender Lily seeds. Right now, it's all in surplus, so that means that all of the Ender farms above are filled with Ender Pearls and Ender Lily seeds. This is all extra. I can plant these seeds wherever I want for aesthetics, or just to, put some more of these back into the wild, because I took a few from the main end island, etc., etc. But, coming on down here into my storage system, I have 2,080 stacks of Ender Pearls, plus whatever I've got up above. That's more Ender Pearls than I think I'm going to be able to use in this entire playthrough. But the nice thing is, Ender Pearls can be used to make Ludicrate with blaze rods and some other stuff. So, I'm going to be set for life with this. Now the other thing is, MFR laser drills create 59 different types of ores. This central spot has precisely 60 storage drawers. So between all of these, which I'm going to put void upgrades in, plus, 4 emerald upgrades, plus, the ender pearl drawer makes 60. And it's very nice because, this part of the build is even centered. So, it just works out. I've got 15 in each quarter. So I've got, 3 by 4 is 12, plus another 3 in the middle, 15. So, yeah, 15 by 4, 60, boom, we done. And, of course, I also put this little thing in the floor so that when the lasers are active, they're none active currently. That's just my way marker. But you can see them come through the tubes and into the storage drawer system. And the brilliant thing about this is I've also left spots for the interfaces such that we can interact directly with the drawer controller when it comes to the applied energistics time. And I'm not really sure where I'm going to put those interfaces just yet. Not sure if above or below, potentially below, as long as it doesn't interfere with the drills. And then I'll just wire everything up as necessary. Now, coming over to one of these side ones, because they're all 4 rotationally going to be the same, there are 59 drawers in this, and I think it's like 3 tall by 17, maybe 19, something like that, plus 2 in the middle makes 59. These are laid out just a little bit differently because they prioritize uranium ore and nether uranium ore, which is far more plentiful than yellurium from big reactors. Conveniently, in Infinity Evolved, uranium is one of the fuel sources for big reactors. So, that means that the 4 lime lasers that I'm going to put in addition to generating, copious amounts of emeralds, which is a nice perk, is going to generate so much uranium that I'll be able to theoretically run my reactor at full tilt, is the hope anyway. Because if I've done my calculations correctly, if I have 4 turbines of the 28 KRF per tick variety, I'll be able to run the 4 outermost lasers and also one of the ones in the middle. The nice thing is, at the current rate that I'm burning fuel at, and I should really be talking about this later, but at the current rate I'm burning fuel at, I burn 1 day's worth of fuel in order to obtain 2.5 days worth of fuel after, full processing through the sag mill and, smelting it up and stuff. So that means already I'm operating on surplus and I'm not even in active cooling mode just yet. So assuming I can get the same amount of power, I'm going to be set for life. Now, as for the rest of this design, I'm planning on putting 1 turbine each, maybe possibly 2, stacked on top of each other, on these 4 outermost parts, and then possibly like a block of turbines in the middle. And then at the very tippy top of this structure, I'm going to have the portal that'll integrate into the portal network. Now, unfortunately, I don't really have any quick way back to my base, so I'm going to cheat a little bit. I am, of course, the administrator on this server, which means that if I do home list, I have up to 100 homes. You can see I've only got 3 of them bound, so I'm not really using them to warp all over the place, but just between my 3 key most areas. All other players on the server have 1 home, and, that's not terrible. I might increase that to 2, potentially. But once I've generated my portal network, I'm going to get rid of all of my homes and just warp between, the places that I need to. And then maybe make, some really important place that's open to the public my home, so that I can get there in a jiff. But even then, should be connected to the portal network. So, still working out the details there. But for now, let us go to the last place that we haven't been yet, home base. Now, ignoring everything off to the right just there, this hole right here connects up to what would be that inner sanctum / gazebo type thing up top. Up top, if you may have noticed, was a Thaumcraft pedestal. It will feed into an Ender IO item conduit that has a filter on it for an Ender or an Eye of Ender named a very specific thing. If it gets that Eye of Ender, it will then be transported through that conduit into an Ender chest. which will be linked up to my applied energistics system. When the applied energistics system detects that item quantity 1 of that very specifically named item, it will activate redstone, causing a funky locomotion elevator to descend into my base. It will also cause, after a bit of delay, Tinker's Construct drawbridges to extend and make it look as if there was no elevator platform there to begin with. So, unless you happen to see me descending into my base, you would not know there's a hidden elevator there. So that's going to be really cool integration. I may potentially have one other way into the base, because I've always wanted to do like a bookshelf that has a carpenter button on it that's also part bookshelf, so it blends into it, and it's like, the hidden bookshelf switch type dealio. Anyway, so that'll descend into the base. As you can see here, this is where I'm going to have the funky locomotion rails, quote-unquote rails. Originally, I wanted to make them retractable, but it turns out that there's no way to do that using drawbridges that functions with that functions with wires that I could use to power the system, or, redstone that I could use to activate that system. So it just became untenable. So what I'm going to do instead is put the rails in, the frame sliders and the frame boosters or whatever, and kind of disguise them as support columns or whatever that just, go up to here. Now, as you can see, black stained glass, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to get like sort of this shading effect going on to make it look as if the base sort of extends upward into nothingness. And this, again, is all inspired by Garreg Monastery, and also a little bit in part Area 17. Again, Fire Emblem 3 Houses. Big spoilers on the last thing that I said. Now, another really annoying thing is somewhere in here is a slime chunk. Probably multiple slime chunks. I have not figured out where they are just yet. But I'm going to be putting magnum torches in later, so I won't have to worry about that. A few things of note. Anywhere you see like cobblestone, I'm probably going to replace it with dark prismarine. It's just scaffolding to sort of lay out stuff. Because in 1.7.10, the only way to get prismarine is through Botania. And that means a lot of quartz, a lot of mana, and of course you also still need to get the associated bricks. Stone brick for light prismarine, nether brick for dark prismarine. It's just a lot to be gathering. So that's why I'm scaffolding out in cobblestone. Here you can see my applied energistics, beginning setup or whatever. It's not actually wired up to anything just yet, but we've got a fake controller here, just for aesthetic reasons, and also kind of to make people think, oh, well, you've got your applied energistics controller there. I don't see any wires, so you've only got like 8 faces that you're using. Incorrect. The actual controller is up here. It's currently not powered on, but I'm planning on putting all sorts of P2P interfaces here so I can extract all of the channels, which amounts to like 2,000 plus. I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to use all of those channels, but I'm going to darn well try. And I've also figured out a lot of cool stuff with subnetting and automation that will theoretically allow me to offload auto-crafting to subnetworks, which is insane in and of itself. But I digress. So, up here, we're going to have 4 modules of 32 molecular assemblers each. There's this really nifty fractal design out there, I think on Reddit somewhere. If I remember to get that, I'll post it. If not, I might, show the finished result and you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. But basically, you've got this fractal design that has up to 32 molecular assemblers, which means that we'll have 128 total, and we'll be able to really pipeline our crafting. And by pipelining, I mean, sort of the programming sense of the term, where you basically can be crafting multiple steps in a recipe at the same time. And that's going to require very careful planning out what autocraft recipes we put in which interfaces. Pardon me. As I mentioned, my throat's kind of bothering me. Down here, we are going to have 4 large CPUs. They're probably going to be like 3x3 by, some number tall. Heck, they might be like 2x2 by some number tall. I'm not sure. And then they're going to be surrounded by, littler CPUs. So basically, I want to be able to have, like, really big jobs taken care of. I want to have littler jobs taken care of. I might hide a really large CPU under here so I can, like, do super mega huge builds. I don't know. So that's all the applied energistic stuff. Moving right on back, one of the prominent features that you've obviously already noticed are 4 Draconic Evolution energy cores. That one's T2, it's full. That one's T1, it's full. These two are T1, but are empty. The reason for this is I'm going to upgrade my energy system later for more Tesseracts, such that if I want to put one of these into maintenance mode to upgrade it, I can flick on maintenance mode, the power will drain out of the relevant core into another empty core of the same size, and then, I'll disable these things, upgrade the core size, re-enable the core, drain, the thing back into it, and then upgrade to this core, and then upgrade the next core, and the next core, all the way until all the cores are T6. Now, this cobblestone framework in here is what you need for T7, and when I took a step back, I thought, T7 gets just a little too close to this ring for my liking, and also I think doesn't really permit us to show the curvature that's going to be on the inside of this quote-unquote like reactor module type thing. So I kind of want to do something a little bit different there. So I figured, T6 will allow me more freedom to build, and the fact that we'd have 4 T6 modules means that we'd still have redonkulous amounts of power just stored up, waiting for use. That's kind of insane. I don't think I'm going to be able to use that much power, but I'm damn well going to try, as I've said before. So, moving to the other 2/3 of the map, first thing are these 2 QED setups that I'm rather pleased by. Again, I used the multi-layer of glass, except this is Tinker's Construct Magenta, I think. You've seen it before in the mining laser platform. And so basically the whole idea is that this, this whole build is going to be like kind of magitechnical, somewhat ancient, somewhat hyper or postmodern, like, magic technology, as I've said. And these two, sort of, and the middle thing here, sort of give the implication that it's all powered by, like, end magic or some void stuff. And QEDs basically craft, various recipes by harnessing the power of the end to make it faster. So because I have, 8 pylons around each of these things, the recipes go fairly quickly. Originally, I was using it to triple my Yellurium yields, but A, Yellurium is kind of poop when you can use uranium, and B, my sag mill up top provides better yields than this. So, I'm mostly going to use it for stuff like, chandelier, magnum torch, what have you. Basically recipes that can only be made in the QED. And the funny thing about the QEDs, you may have noticed at the top of the screen, is called Quantum Entanglement Doohickey. It changes names, well, not every time you look at it, but like when you walk away and then look at it again, it'll change display names. It's kind of an ongoing joke because of, quantum uncertainty principles and all that jazz. Heisenberg, eat your heart out. Anyway. So, the problem with the QED is that you can't actually automate inputs to it. So, if I do try to auto-craft recipes for this, it's going to be semi-automatic. Basically, what'll happen is I'll have the resources put into an ender chest, and then I'll use an ender pouch like this to retrieve them, dump them into my inventory or something, and then dump them... Hey, look at that! Quod erat demonstratum. That's a classic as it has been demonstrated, end of proof type thing. So I'll dump, the recipe into the QED, and from there it'll craft on up, and it'll output into an ender chest that I've got concealed down below. And there's, an item conduit going through here. That's all painted Ender IO stuff. Before I go on to more impressive looking stuff, there are, as you can see, 8 modules kind of on the floor and the ceiling that are going to contain large fluid container, etc., etc. Probably going to be like lava, water, steam, like liquid XP, creosote, biomass, what have you. seed oil, something like that. I'm going to have like a list of the most 8 important fluids that I think I'm going to use the most. And then around those, I'm going to have other fluids that I'm going to use less frequently, like liquid glowstone, gelid cryotheum, blazing pyrotheum, I think. I think there's like aerotheum for, some fuel stuff too. And so basically I'm going to have like 128, wait, hold on, is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, by 2 is 16, by 2 again is 32, 64. 128, yeah, I was right. I'm going to have 128 discrete fluid modules around those initial 8. So that means I can double up, I can mix and match, well, not exactly mix and match, there'll be a single fluid container, but that means I can store alloys, I can store, byproducts, I can store basically any fluid that this game offers, and potentially more. So that's going to be really impressive, I think. In the middle here, we have, sort of this end-inspired, I think it's called a mandala, or, more importantly, a formal craft circle. So basically, this is my Thaumcraft ritual altar, or infusion altar, that's what it's called, yes. And the nifty thing about this is, if we come down here, I've hollowed out the access points to these arcane pedestals so that I should be able to use applied energistics to automate the entire infusion process. Now, there's going to be some complex logic to that, like I'm going to need to have like a subnetwork that'll distribute the items correctly in the right places. I'm going to need to have like viz storage. I'm going to use the mirrors to pipe it up here to the actual ritual itself, but the main viz storage is going to be over in the proper Thaumcraft room somewhere over that way. Now, I guess I'll get into the waterfalls before, well, the falls, I should say, before I talk about the side rooms. The lava fall, purely decorative, only aesthetic, doesn't actually do anything. But it's also to sort of evoke the idea, you've got lava, you've got water, that's a cobble generator right there. So you've got your prototypical, stone generators kind of evoked there. Behind this waterfall, however, you can see I've got more immersive engineering water wheels. Now, these top 2 are for sure going at the maximum 88 RF per tick, because I designed it that way. Down below, it's a bit less than that, because I know for a fact that the flowing water can't go backwards, because the waterfall is right here. Further down, transfer node for liquids. They all have these world interaction upgrades and speed upgrades, so that means that they're pumping a heck ton of water. Now, right now, it's not going anywhere besides this reactor, but it'll eventually, fill up the large water tank that I've got, like, over here or something like that, and be used in other recipes. Down below, I've got some more applied energistic stuff, and also a fluid transposer and more stuff, so that I can make, AE2 chips, I can, fill tesseracts, I can do stuff with gelid cryotheum and liquid glowstone, and, that's what the magma crucible is here for. I could theoretically automate that process too, but I also liked being able to pump this stuff out for when I was making the reactor, so that's, why I've got separate containers over there. Over here, and I was pleasantly surprised to find out that I left this on, running, but this is a maximum upgraded igneous extruder pumping out cobblestone. This is a matter condenser with, a 64K ME storage component. I have 64 singularities. Each of these can generate a singularity pair. So that means I can have 64 wireless connections to my AE network. I think I'm only going to need 3, so I've overdone that a little bit. Like, a little bit. Like I said, I left that on. I didn't mean to. So I'm probably only going to need 3 or 4. I might give the rest away if anybody gets into AE on the server. So those are that. We've done everything in the middle third of the map, as I would say. So here is my portal. Well, my dialable Draconic Evolution portal. And so the way this works is a combination of integrations. It's like one of the things that I'm proudest about besides the mining laser setup and the Botania integration back in the mining dimension. This thing has a Corporea index down below. For the uninitiated, that means that I can type the name of something and summon it to my inventory, or actually it summons it to the Corporea index, but using the items bubble up through solid objects thing in Minecraft, it'll bubble up through the floor and go into my inventory. This receptacle is also how I add new destinations to the system. If I have a Draconic Evolution Dislocator Charm, I plop it in here, and then it goes into the system, directly into the Dislocator receptacle, and the portal lights up. The Dislocator receptacle is also hooked up to a comparator. So when that comparator is active, that means these stairs are active. There's another condition for the stairs being active, which is being close to this player detector. They're wired up separately, so that when I go through the portal, and this is all chunk loaded, this player detector becomes inactive. That means the stairs will descend, and also this portal will empty out. There are 2 diamond chests down below, also hooked up to the Corporea network. So that means that I can hold, like over 100 destinations, I think. And very simply, all I have to do is type the destination. So if I want to go to, say, the end, I would call that probably terminal, because I'm doing most of my names in French. So I would, label a thing terminal. I would write, type it in chat. It would pop into my inventory, I'd put it in, and off I go. And the only way to get back here is I would have another Dislocator Charm keyed specifically to the top of this platform, which I would, obviously give a top that I can stand on. And then, obviously these stairs are going to be a little bit more robust, but if we pop down here real quick, you can see I've got a lot of Ender IO conduit stuff going on here, a lot of AND gates, a lot of delays. It's basically a more complicated version of that drawbridge down below. What it's supposed to do is extend 1 stair block at a time, but what actually ends up happening is it does it in 2s, and I find that acceptable. I think it's due to a redstone adjacency problem. I haven't been able to resolve it, even powering the blocks indirectly. At this point, I don't care. It's cool. It works mostly. Yeah, I'm just going to replace the cobble with prismarine, and then, the stairs will look really pretty when we get to it. Where did I... Oh, yeah. No, my shurikens are still in hand. Now, another one of my dreams for the server, not really a dream per se, but another one of my goals for the server is to create the ultimate, Tinker's Construct tools using a combination of, like Awakened Draconium, Cobalt, and other materials, shiny perhaps, etc., etc., and I've been doing a little experimenting with that in creative. But that's completely irrelevant. I got, mild tangent just there, thanks to the slimes. Last, but certainly not least, Big Reactor's reactor. So, real quick, up top, we've got our input. Yeah, double chest of uranium/yellurium. Ender chest full of uranium. And we've got a partial double chest with uranium ingots back up at the base. This kyanite ingot drawer is 2/3 full. Just, through basic slow use. At this point, I think I can start making turbines and get ready for active power mode, or active cooling mode, I should say. But also, I should start sending some through the kyanite reprocessor so that I can make the plutonium that I need for the ludocrite. Over here, we have a setup that I initially used to get snowballs for the gelid cryothium I need for this reactor. Conveniently, putting gelid cryothium in the reactor is also what generates the snow on top. So, later, I'm going to have applied energistics dematerialization planes, and 3 out of 4 of them, plus I guess the middle one, will just be regular dematerialization planes, but there's also one plane that you can apply like a silk touch upgrade to, so that's how I'm going to get, the snow carpets, if that works out. And so that'll be fully automatic. I'll be taking advantage of my reactor in a bunch of different ways. Right now, we are, as I mentioned, in passive cooling mode. The control rods are, I think, 6 of them are at 84 or 85%, and 2 of them are 84. Maybe I have that backwards. But what that means is if I were to turn this on, I'd be generating about 20 KRF per tick. Plus, the other power modes that I've got going on here. And I slightly fill up the cores as I run the reactor. Plus, I can run a laser drill on top of it. So that's how I get the 2.5 fuel for 1 day of fuel spent. pretty dang fantastic. And I think it might actually have even been better than that. I'm not sure. So, the reactor setup, if you're confused about why I've set it up exactly the way I have, go check out Wells Knight. He has a great video on this topic, and was kind of, how I came to this particular design. But what we have here is a layer of Resonant Ender, 2 layers of Gelid Cryothium, 8 control rods, which is also where the fuel gets injected, and 1 more Gelid Cryothium in the middle. So technically, the optimal design for this particular spec would be 1 wider and having 3 layers of the Gelid Cryothium, but it's just a slight loss on efficiency. I think that still means that I can make about as much power either way. It just means I'm going to burn through fuel a little bit faster. Making a reactor taller or adding more fuel rods is what allows it to burn more fuel and therefore produce a lot more energy. And making a reactor wider allows for better heat dispersal. So with, just a single quote-unquote core like this, it would be more effective if I had, the 3 layers of Gelid Cryothium plus the Resonant Ender, but this is good enough. Now, having the 1 Gelid Cryothium in the middle here makes the reactor slightly more efficient, kind of just offsets this a little bit. Does mean we can generate a little bit less power at the cap, but that's fine by me. Because when we switch this over to active power, I believe what I'm running on produces, I forget if it's 2 or 4 millibuckets of steam per tick. Or, not millibuckets, 2 or 4 buckets of steam per tick. And the turbines that I'd be running consume 2 per tick. So basically, as I scale up, I'm going to have just so much more power generation. And 1 turbine in the spec that I'm using generates 28 KRF per tick. So 5 of those... 5 of those? 4 of those. Hold on. Doing some quick maths. 5 of those means that I'd be generating 100 plus an additional 40. So that means for 5 turbines, I can generate enough power for 7 lasers. Yeah, so that's the ratio. And that basically means that, just by switching to active cooled mode, I can sustain the 4 outermost green or lime green lasers and generate far more fuel than this could possibly consume, potentially at full tilt even. And that means I'd be able to run each of the other lasers. And I plan on automating the lasers with, its own controller set up there and various thresholds for the resources associated with a given laser focus. But with that is the entire tour. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to leave a like. If you're new to the channel and want to see more Minecraft, whether modded, vanilla, or you want to see some Space Engineers or Mass Effect or whatever game I end up playing, then of course click the subscribe button and click the bell to be notified. And with that, I will catch you on the flip side. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good day.